Though we may get a bit bent from time to time, we shall never be beaten.
Well, since D-Day, what's been your best target?
Well, that's hard to say. I remember a word from another flight commander, however, on one job. We spotted a troop train, and I heard from him over the air, "Let's go, boys. It's open season on Krautheads." And we went down after them.
And on escort, what are the things you remember most?
Well, I remember those crippled bombers falling out of formation, and the good words the crew have for us when they say that they're so glad to see us when we come down to keep them company. Sometimes the boys sound a bit worried, and you can't blame them. Usually it's, "Hey, Doc, come down here. We need a little escort." And then when they see you around, you usually get, "Ah, that's better, boys. That's much better."
Tell us now, Captain, if you will, about that Wednesday flight.
I was just flying along over Germany after escorting bombers which had just blasted targets at Berlin, when I noticed a flying fort break away from its formation. The two left engines were dead and the props were feathered. Then I heard the bomber call me in. Little friend, I've got two engines out and I'm on fire. Can you see me, little friend?" As I was coming down to them, I said, "I'm crossing right over you. Let's go home." His answer was an answer like Kay Kaiser's, "Yes, do it." Even though he knew he was badly hit, he didn't seem worried. 7 other P-51s came down with me, so I pulled up alongside the big ship, lowered my flaps to slow down to his speed, and then noticed a big hole about 3 feet square on the bottom of the wing, where flames were burning inside and eating the skin away. I cut in and told him the aluminum was melting away on his wings and the flames were beginning to break through the top. I kept alongside and tried to suggest different stunts for putting out the fire. Cut back to the right or to the left. Dive, pick up speed as we have to blow out the flame, and so on, but nothing seemed to work. Finally he called, "Little friend, I'm afraid I'll have to bail out. Will you stand by and count the chutes as they go out?" I told him to go ahead and I'd count. I watched 7 of them open out, one by one. Then I called again to check the count. "How did that make us now, little friend?" he said. "That's just 7 men out," I told him. A few seconds later, another chute opened, and then the bomber pilot gave us his parting shot. "Thanks for the escort, fellers. See you after the war." That hit us all pretty hard. About all I could say was, "Okay, big friend. Lots of luck to you all." Then the pilot's own chute opened out just before the bomber flipped over in a wing and went streaming down in flames.
Well, Captain, that certainly is an amazing story. Had anything like that ever happened to you before?
No, I'd never counted them before, but I've talked with plenty of them.
Well, do they always go on with this title, Little Friend?
Not always. Once we brought a B-24 back out of France. He had 2 engines out. We talked with him all the way back, and as we got near home, I heard the radio operator say, "Little friend, we have a message for you." Then I heard, "Mary Jane, we love you." We had been so close to them, they saw the name on my ship. I cut in immediately. "Now look, boys, take it easy. That's my gal." They came back with, "We don't care. We still love you."
Between 1941 and 1945, the Allies performed large-scale bombing raids on Germany and German-occupied nations. Under the veil of darkness, the RAF's Bomber Command launched large-scale night bombing operations, conducting some raids with over 1,000 heavy bombers.
War industry. Away and over the sea they roar, loaded with bombs. Each bomb big enough to blast an area of 10 city blocks. Coming in over the target. Tonight it's Essen, and the camera records the destruction.
Night bombing operations made RAF bombers less likely to find air-to-air opposition than in daytime operations. However, German night fighters and ground defenses still inflicted a heavy toll on Bomber Command. During the course of the war, over half of all Bomber Command crews were killed in action or died of wounds. Lacking long-range escort fighters, bombing operations for the RAF continued to suffer heavy losses in the early stage of the bombing offensive. Better defended American bombers took the brunt of the daylight operations. However, without any fighter defenses, they too fell prey to German day fighters and incurred heavy losses, which was contrary to the American pre-war belief that tight formations of bombers could fend for themselves. Both the RAF and the U.S. Army Air Force began to realize the need for long-range escort fighters. Three main American fighters, the Lockheed P-38 Lightning, the Republic P-47 Thunderbolt, and the famous North American P-51 Mustang, became the Western Allies' main escort fighters. The British Supermarine Spitfire also took up the escort role once the Allies had established air bases in France. The P-51, which is perhaps the most famous aircraft of all time, took to the escort role well, with the most famous P-51 variant, the P-51D, which was known as the Mustang Mark IV to the RAF, becoming one of the most important and effective escort fighters of the war, with Mustangs escorting Allied bombers to targets all over Europe. Fast, powerful, and well-armed, the Mustangs was able to provide a new level of protection for bombers, and soon the Luftwaffe began to accumulate heavy losses. Hermann Goering, the commander of the Luftwaffe, was quoted as saying, "The day I saw Mustangs over Berlin, I knew the jig was up." Although escort fighters did help to protect the bombers still often fell prey to flak or enemy fighters who had managed to slip past the escort. The pilots of escort fighters quite often had to watch helplessly as bombers were either shot down or crippled by flak. Communicating by radio, fighters often found themselves escorting crippled and damaged bombers back to base. 24-year-old P-51 pilot James B Cheney of the 8th Air Force's 376th Fighter Squadron found himself in one such situation. While escorting a damaged B-17 Flying Fortress back to base, he could do nothing but watch the crew bail out over occupied territory, a move which would all but guarantee a stay in a German prisoner of war camp for the duration of the war. In October 1944, a few months after making the recording which you just heard, Cheney was flying a patrol when he was forced to bail out due to a mechanical failure and was taken a prisoner. He remained a POW until April 1945 and finished the war a highly decorated pilot, receiving the Distinguished Flying Cross, Distinguished Service Medal, and the Purple Heart. Cheney published a book in his later life about his experiences during the war called Under His Wing. He died in 2011 at the age of 91.